A masterpiece can whisper secrets across centuries. This is the artisan's code, the hidden language of symbols and motives embedded within ancient art. By the end of this video, you will see every great work not as a static image, but as a living conversation with its creator. We will explore why a simple gesture in a Renaissance fresco might be a political protest, and what cryptic marks in an Egyptian tomb reveal about the artist's own beliefs. The surface beauty is just the beginning. What story do you think is waiting to be told? This artisan's code is not a single, universal cipher, but a spectrum of hidden languages. Picture a medieval tapestry. To most, it is a beautiful scene of a royal hunt. But to those who know the code, the specific flowers woven into the border might be a declaration of allegiance to a fallen noble house. The number of stitches in a character's robe could secretly mark the year of a significant, unspoken rebellion. These embedded meanings transform the work from a simple decoration into a layered document, a silent testimony waiting for the right key to unlock it. The motives for such concealment were as varied as the symbols themselves. Sometimes it was a matter of safety, allowing an artist to critique a powerful patron or ruler without facing direct punishment. Other times it was spiritual, embedding sacred geometry or numerological patterns that connected the physical artwork to a divine order, visible only to the initiated. An artisan might even hide their own name within the intricate folds of a sculpted garment, a personal signature for eternity. Learning to see this code is like adjusting a lens. Suddenly, the entire composition shifts. A simple still life is no longer just a display of fruit and silver. It becomes a meditation on mortality, where a wilting flower and a half-peeled lemon speak volumes about the fleeting nature of life and wealth. This is the foundational shift in perception. To truly understand why an artisan felt compelled to speak in whispers, we must step into their world, a world of immense pressure, profound belief, and constant innovation. That pressure to speak without being heard shaped entire artistic traditions. In ancient Egypt, a sculptor carving a pharaoh's tomb might subtly alter a hieroglyph, embedding a quiet plea to the gods or a veiled critique of the ruler's hubris, all under the watchful eyes of royal overseers. Their survival depended on this duality. The art that adorned palaces and temples was rarely just decoration. It was a complex dialogue of power and belief. Consider the grand narratives of the Renaissance, a period bursting with artistic genius yet constrained by the immense power and vanity of wealthy patrons. A noble family commissioning a portrait expected a celebration of their status, a visual proof of their right to rule. An artist, bound by contract and custom, would deliver exactly that, a flattering likeness set amidst symbols of wealth and virtue. But within that very framework, a master could weave a counter-narrative. The same dog symbolizing loyalty to the patron might also represent a hidden insult known only to a select few. A particular fruit in the background could carry a double meaning, praising the family's abundance while simultaneously hinting at its corruption. This delicate dance was not just about rebellion, it was also about education. For centuries, the vast majority of people could not read. Their entire understanding of faith, history, and morality came from the images that surrounded them. The stained glass windows of a medieval cathedral were not merely colorful, they were a complete visual Bible. Every color, every animal, every gesture held a specific meaning, teaching complex theological concepts to an illiterate congregation through a universal language of symbols. A lily represented purity, a pelican piercing its own breast symbolized Christ's sacrifice. This visual shorthand allowed artisans to encode entire libraries of knowledge into a single window or sculpture. So this historical backdrop reveals that coded art was far more than an artistic choice. It was a vital survival tool for the artist, a powerful teaching mechanism for society, and a brilliant form of intellectual rebellion. To understand how they accomplished this, we must first learn to read their primary language, the language of symbolism and allegory. A lamb is never just a lamb in a medieval altarpiece. It is a profound symbol of innocence and sacrifice, a visual key that unlocks a deeper spiritual truth for the viewer. This is the power of symbolism, the first and most universal language in the artisan's code. An artist uses a simple, recognizable object like an hourglass to represent a vast and abstract idea, the relentless passage of time and our own mortality. But symbolism can build into something even more complex, a complete parallel narrative known as allegory. Here, every character, every action, and every object in the scene is part of a hidden story with a moral or political meaning. Take Sandro Botticelli's masterpiece, Primavera. On the surface, it is a graceful scene of figures in a garden, but for those who understand the code, it transforms into a dense philosophical allegory. The central figure is not merely a woman but Venus, representing humanistic love. The three graces dancing beside her embody virtues like chastity and beauty, while the fiery figure of Mercury wards off the clouds of ignorance. Every single flower and flowing drape is a piece of a complex puzzle about the awakening of knowledge and the nature of desire. The genius of this method lay in its cultural resonance. An artisan would select symbols that were widely understood within a specific group, a secret handshake rendered in paint or stone. A particular flower might signal allegiance to a political faction. A specific type of fruit could hint at a forbidden philosophical idea. This created a two-tiered experience. The general public saw a beautiful, pious image, while the initiated few decoded a radical message hidden in plain sight. This required the artist to be a master of audience awareness, carefully crafting a puzzle that would only be solved by the right eyes. Cracking this symbolic language is the essential first step, but the artisan's toolkit did not end there. The very colors they used and the way they manipulated light held equally potent, hidden meanings. Beyond the language of symbols, an artisan's true power often lay in their palette. Color was never just a visual choice. It was a carefully coded language of emotion, status, and belief. The vibrant blue adorning the Virgin Mary's robe in a Renaissance painting was not merely beautiful. It was a declaration. This specific pigment, ultramarine blue, was painstakingly made from crushed lapis lazuli, a stone more precious than gold. Its immense cost and radiant hue made it the only color worthy of representing divine purity and heavenly grace. Conversely, darker, muddier tones might be used to shroud a scene in mystery or to subtly suggest a character's malevolence. This symbolic weight of color was a universal tool. In the East, Chinese artisans used brilliant mineral greens to represent eternal life and the vibrant natural world, while imperial yellow was reserved solely for the emperor, a visual decree of his supreme authority. But artisans did more than just select colors. They learned to sculpt with light itself. Look at the works of Caravaggio, where darkness is not merely an absence of light but a physical, almost menacing presence. His technique, known as Chiaroscuro, used violent contrasts between brilliant illumination and deep shadow. This was not just a dramatic style, it was a narrative device. A single beam of light would cut through the darkness to spotlight a moment of profound decision, a gesture of betrayal, or an expression of divine intervention. The light literally guides your eye and your heart, forcing you to witness the moral struggle at the center of the story. The very substance of the paint could hold secrets too. Recipes for certain hues were guarded within artisan guilds like state secrets. Some pigments were mixed with rare oils or ground minerals that gave them a unique texture or luminosity, adding a literal, physical layer of meaning that only the initiated would fully appreciate. So when we analyze these choices of color and light, we are not just studying aesthetics. We are reading the emotional and thematic undercurrents the artist deliberately embedded into the work. This mastery of visual elements set the stage for an even more profound deception, one that would literally reshape the world of art. The very canvas itself became a stage for hidden narratives, orchestrated through the silent power of composition and perspective. An artist's arrangement of figures and objects was never accidental. It was a deliberate act of visual hierarchy, a way to command your eye and embed a philosophical statement directly into the bones of the work. During the Renaissance, the mastery of linear perspective gave artisans an unprecedented tool. By aligning all lines to a single vanishing point, they could create an illusion of breathtaking depth. But this technical miracle was also a profound declaration of order. The most important figures, whether saints or patrons, were almost always placed at the center of this converging grid, their dominance over the scene reinforced by the very architecture of the painted space. Their authority was not just suggested by their size or gesture, but mathematically guaranteed by the perspective itself. To look at the painting was to accept their central, sanctified role. Yet, some artists played with this established order to whisper a different truth. An asymmetrical composition, where the main figure is pushed to the side, could subtly suggest instability, rebellion, or an alternative story simmering just beneath the surface. This visual tension invites you to question the scene, to look for the element that disrupts the harmony. The most brilliant and daring use of perspective, however, was anamorphosis. This was perspective pushed to its extreme, a distorted image that only snaps into focus when viewed from a single, specific angle. From the front, you might see only a strange, elongated smudge or an innocuous pattern on a wall. But step to one precise spot, and a hidden, often controversial image suddenly emerges with perfect clarity. It could be a secret portrait of a deposed monarch, a symbol of a banned philosophical society, or a memento mori, a skull reminding viewers of their own mortality. This was the ultimate safeguard. A patron or censor inspecting the work would see nothing amiss. Only those in the know, those who had been told where to stand, would witness the hidden truth. The artwork became an interactive secret, its full meaning unlocked not by knowledge alone, but by your physical relationship to it. This deliberate structuring proves that perspective was far more than a technical achievement. It was a cunning narrative device, a way to hide profound and sometimes dangerous ideas in the most visible place possible. These geometric principles of order and deception did not exist in a vacuum. They were part of a much older, deeply revered tradition that saw numbers and shapes as the very language of the universe. Geometry itself was a sacred language. For countless artisans, the universe was not chaotic but built upon perfect, mathematical principles, and their greatest task was to reflect that divine order in their work. This leads us to the fourth method of the artisan's code, the use of mathematical and geometric ciphers. These were not mere design choices, they were profound philosophical statements embedded in stone and paint. The most famous of these principles is the golden ratio, a specific proportion found throughout nature, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. Ancient builders and artists believed this ratio represented the pinnacle of aesthetic harmony, a visual echo of a cosmic blueprint. The very dimensions of the Parthenon in Athens are said to be governed by this ratio, its columns and facade meticulously designed to create a sense of perfect, timeless balance that feels instinctively right to the human eye. This was not just about beauty, it was about connecting a human structure to the eternal laws of the universe. Leonardo da Vinci's iconic Vitruvian Man is perhaps the ultimate expression of this idea. The drawing is far more than a study of human anatomy. It is a geometric manifesto. By superimposing the human form onto both a circle and a square, Da Vinci was illustrating the ancient belief that humanity itself is a perfect microcosm, a mirror of the grand mathematical order of the cosmos. The proportions of the ideal human body were seen as a direct reflection of divine geometry. To understand this drawing is to understand that the artisan saw their work as a bridge between the earthly and the celestial. But these codes could be even more intricate. Artisans frequently hid complex geometric patterns within their artworks, like the intricate mandalas of Tibetan Buddhism or the fractal-like designs in Islamic mosaics. A mandala is not simply a beautiful circular image, it is a cosmic diagram. Its symmetrical layers represent the entire universe, a map of enlightenment guiding the viewer from the outer realms of suffering to the sacred, still center of ultimate reality. Similarly, the endlessly repeating patterns in Islamic art are not just decorative. They are visual representations of infinity, a denial of emptiness that points toward the infinite and indivisible nature of the divine. To the untrained eye, these are mesmerizing patterns. To the initiated, they are a theological argument rendered in tile and pigment. Deciphering these mathematical codes requires us to look at art with both an artist's eye and a mathematician's mind. It reveals an artisan who was not just a craftsman, but a philosopher and a mystic, convinced that truth was hidden in the silent language of number and form. Yet, beyond these grand statements about cosmic order, these same geometric principles could also be used for something far more personal, a way for the artisan to leave their own indelible, if hidden, mark upon their creation. That same sacred geometry used to map the cosmos was also the perfect canvas for a deeply personal secret, the artist's own signature. Beyond the grand statements of divine order and communal symbols, artisans felt a powerful, very human need to leave their own mark, to claim their work for eternity. This is the fifth method of the artisan's code, the use of hidden signatures and personal motives. In an era where artists were often seen as anonymous craftsmen, hiding their identity within the work became an act of quiet rebellion and profound self-assertion. Albrecht Dürer, the Northern Renaissance master, turned his own initials into a celebrated puzzle. His famous AD monogram is not a simple scribble. It is a meticulously designed logo, a piece of graphic art in its own right that he fiercely protected. By embedding this distinctive mark into his prints and paintings, he was doing more than just signing his name. He was branding his work, asserting his intellectual property and his personal genius in a world that was only beginning to recognize the individual artist. This was a cryptogram of pride, a way of ensuring that his name would be inseparable from his creations for all time. Other artists sought a different kind of immortality, hiding their own faces within the crowds of their epic narratives. Michelangelo, while painting the monumental Last Judgment in the Sistine Chapel, performed a startling act of personal expression. He took the flayed skin held by Saint Bartholomew and gave it his own tortured features. This was not a simple signature, it was a raw and vulnerable self-portrait, a permanent testament to his own spiritual suffering and the immense personal cost of his art. He literally inserted his own soul into the divine drama, forever a part of the sacred story he was depicting. But these personal marks could also carry a sharp, critical edge. The constraints of patronage, where an artist's livelihood depended on pleasing a powerful client, often forced dissent into clever disguises. An artisan might subtly paint a difficult patron's face onto a figure of a fool or a villain in a crowded scene. To the public, it was just another character, but to the patron and the artist's inner circle, it was a brilliant, unpunishable insult hiding in plain sight. This covert commentary transformed the artwork from a simple commission into a complex biographical document, layered with the artist's private struggles, their pride, and their quiet resistance. Finding one of these hidden signatures or coded critiques changes everything. Suddenly, you are no longer just looking at a historical artifact. You are peering through a window into the artist's studio, sharing in their personal stake in the creation. You connect with their humanity across the centuries. This intimate dance between the artist's voice and their patron's demands was one of the most powerful forces shaping the hidden messages we find in art today. Every brushstroke had a patron watching. The relationship between an artist and their financial backer was a delicate, high-stakes negotiation, a dance of power and creativity that shaped the very art we admire today. A wealthy merchant did not simply buy a painting. He commissioned a public relations campaign, a visual argument for his virtue, piety, and success. He would demand symbols of prosperity, like oranges imported at great expense, and tokens of faith, like a rosary gleaming in the corner. For a royal patron, the demands were even greater. An artist might be ordered to create an allegory that legitimized a shaky claim to the throne, depicting the ruler as a wise Roman emperor or a divinely chosen king. The artisan's livelihood depended on saying yes, but their integrity and sometimes their safety depended on finding a way to say something more. They became masters of duality, creating a surface that glorified the patron while weaving a subtle, often critical, undercurrent just beneath. Look at Jan van Eyck's Arnolfini portrait. On the surface, it is a rich, detailed celebration of a merchant's marriage, a testament to his wealth and social standing. Every object, from the expensive wool of the gowns to the single candle burning in the chandelier, speaks of affluence and contract. Yet, art historians have long debated the hidden narrative. Is the woman's gesture a sign of piety or a hint at pregnancy? Does the little dog at their feet symbolize loyalty, or does it carry a more scandalous meaning related to lust or social climbing? The artist, while fulfilling his commission to the letter, may have embedded a quiet commentary on the social pressures and personal realities of this union. He gave his patron the dignified portrait he paid for, but he also gave us a puzzle that questions the very nature of the scene. This was the artisan's genius. They learned to speak two languages at once, one for the patron who held the purse strings, and another for the future, for those who would look closely enough to see the truth. This intricate dance between external demands and internal expression transforms every commissioned masterpiece into a layered document of its time. It reveals the economic and political pressures that were the true canvas upon which art was created. Leonardo da Vinci's workshop was a living encyclopedia, and he painted its pages. He did not merely observe the world, he dissected it, seeking the invisible forces that governed life, light, and form. This profound scientific curiosity became his most sophisticated cipher, transforming his public works into dense, layered vaults of forbidden knowledge and personal philosophy. Take his monumental fresco, The Last Supper. On the surface, it captures the dramatic moment Christ announces a betrayal. Yet, for Da Vinci, the scene was also a geometric and harmonic puzzle. The perspective lines do more than create depth. They converge with a force that visually centers the composition on Christ, a mathematical assertion of his spiritual significance. But look closer at the chaos of the apostles. The specific arrangement of their hands and the loaves on the table have been interpreted by some as a musical composition, a silent score where the positions of bread and fingers correspond to notes on a staff. Other analyzers suggest a figure is concealed in the composition itself, a ghostly outline formed by the space between the apostles, perhaps a representation of the Holy Spirit or a more esoteric symbol. This was not accidental. It was the mind of an inventor, an anatomist, and a musician using the discipline of art to explore the unity of all knowledge. The same fusion defines his most famous portrait. The Mona Lisa's smile is not a simple expression. It is a scientific study of optics and human perception. Leonardo used his understanding of how the human eye processes light and shadow at the edges of forms to create that elusive, shifting smile, which seems to change as your gaze moves. It is a painted demonstration of his theories on vision. Even the fantastical landscape behind her is a geological thesis. The winding rivers and eroded rock formations are not pure fantasy. They are reflections of his extensive studies on the movement of water and the slow, powerful forces that shape the earth. He was painting the true history of the world, not just a pretty backdrop. His private notebooks confirm this compulsive encoding. He filled thousands of pages with mirror writing, a backward script perhaps intended to protect his revolutionary ideas from casual readers or accusations of heresy. This habit of concealment suggests that his public works, the ones seen by all, might hold similar encryptions, waiting for an observer with the right key. Da Vinci's genius shows us the artisan's code at its most sublime, where a brushstroke could simultaneously depict a fold of fabric, a law of nature, and a secret thought. This same drive to encode monumental ideas within a sacred space finds its ultimate expression just a few decades later, painted onto the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. The Sistine Chapel ceiling is a symphony of painted stone. Michelangelo, who considered himself a sculptor first, approached this colossal commission as if he were carving figures out of the very sky, infusing every muscle and fold with a physical and spiritual tension that transcends its biblical subject matter. This is not a simple illustration of Genesis. It is a profound visual argument, a fusion of the artist's deep immersion in human anatomy and his private, complex relationship with God. Look at the very center of this epic, the creation of Adam. The iconic image of their outstretched hands is universally recognized, but its true genius lies in what remains unsaid. That sliver of space between the finger of God and the finger of Adam is the entire drama of humanity. It is potential itself. God is not a distant, ethereal spirit, but a powerful, dynamic figure surging with life, his form mirrored by a swirling cloak that some scholars suggest perfectly replicates the cross-section of a human brain. Was Michelangelo, through his secret dissections of corpses, suggesting that divine intelligence is the very spark of human consciousness? Simultaneously, the shape surrounding God and his angels has been interpreted as an anatomically precise human uterus, with the green scarf beneath him representing a freshly cut umbilical cord. This single panel becomes a layered thesis on creation, blending the spiritual miracle with the biological reality, a daring synthesis only possible from an artist who was also a clandestine scientist. This philosophical depth extends to the monumental figures guarding the central narrative. The prophets and sibyls are not stoic icons, they are portraits of profound psychological turmoil. The prophet Jeremiah is not merely contemplative, he is consumed by a grief so heavy it seems to bend the very marble he is painted upon. This is widely believed to be a self-portrait, Michelangelo's own anguish over the state of the church and his personal spiritual doubts made permanently visible. His critical view of the Vatican's growing corruption and materialism is etched into the despairing face of Zechariah, a figure whose likeness to Pope Julius Roman II would have been unmistakable to the clergy standing below. This was a breathtakingly bold act, using the Pope's own commission to critique his reign. Even the ceiling's overall structure echoes a fierce personal conflict. Michelangelo's tumultuous relationship with Julius II was a battle of titanic wills. The artist's initial design was far simpler, but the Pope demanded a grandeur that pushed Michelangelo to his physical and creative limits for 4 agonizing years. The resulting expansion in scope, the overwhelming complexity of the scenes, can be read as a testament to that struggle. The ceiling became the silent, enduring record of their clash, a victory wrested from conflict and frozen in pigment for eternity. Michelangelo encoded his body, his mind, and his soul into that vault, transforming a papal commission into one of history's most personal and revolutionary artistic statements. Now consider the mysteries of ancient Egyptian art. Egyptian art presents the ultimate paradox, a world of rigid order pulsing with hidden life. For 3,000 years, artisans worked within an unyielding visual language, their figures frozen in perfect profile, their scenes governed by divine rules. This was not a lack of creativity, but a profound commitment to the cosmic balance that held chaos at bay. Every statue, every tomb painting was an act of spiritual maintenance, a ritual to preserve the harmony of the universe. Yet within this strict grid, the artisan's code flourished in the most sophisticated ways. Their primary tool was the hieroglyph itself, a system where a single image could be a sound, a word, or a complete idea. The Ankh, the iconic looped cross, is the perfect example. It straightforwardly means life, but when a pharaoh is depicted receiving an ankh from a god, the symbol transforms. It is no longer just about breath and vitality. It becomes a political claim to divine right, a visual argument for eternal, God-sanctioned rule. The choice of which symbol to use and how to combine it could layer meanings, creating a dense, poetic text accessible only to the literate priestly and administrative classes. This encoding extended to the grand tomb paintings intended to guide the soul to the afterlife. A scene of the deceased triumphing over chaos serpents was not merely a magical spell. It was a carefully crafted piece of propaganda, a permanent declaration etched onto the walls of eternity that this individual was a champion of Maat, worthy of honor and remembrance. The specific regalia they were shown holding, the precise style of their crown, every scepter and staff, reinforced their social rank and legacy in the world they left behind. But what about the artisans themselves, the anonymous hands who executed these visions? Occasionally, a flicker of individual voice breaks through the canonical surface. In the tombs of the workers at Deir el-Medina, the very people who built the royal tombs, we find a different kind of art. Here, the strict rules relax. We see more fluid, expressive sketches that reveal personal piety and daily life. In monumental works, a sculptor might subtly alter the standard depiction of a powerful official, carving his face with a hint of arrogance or giving a captive an unusual expression of dignity. An artisan could even hide their own name within the complex patterns of a hieroglyphic inscription, a tiny, defiant act of self in a world dedicated to the collective and the divine. These minute deviations are the whispers we strain to hear. They suggest that even in the most regimented artistic tradition in history, the human need for expression, for commentary, for leaving a personal mark, could not be entirely suppressed. Decoding this requires us to learn the cultural lexicon, to understand that a scarab beetle represents rebirth, that a feather signifies truth, and that a crocodile might embody the terrifying chaos waiting beyond the ordered world. This ancient practice of speaking in a layered visual language was not unique to the Nile. a parallel tradition of profound symbolic coding was simultaneously flourishing thousands of miles to the east. A single bamboo stalk, bending but never breaking in a fierce wind, is far more than a plant in a Chinese ink painting. It is a portrait of the ideal scholar, embodying resilience, integrity, and unyielding moral character. This is the subtle language of Eastern art, where every brushstroke and every void of empty space carries the weight of profound philosophy. While European masters were perfecting perspective and human anatomy, artisans in China and Japan were mastering a different code, one that conveyed Taoist harmony, Buddhist impermanence, and Confucian duty through the very essence of the natural world. A gnarled pine tree represented longevity and endurance. A delicate orchid symbolized refinement and humility. The artist did not seek to capture a mere visual likeness, but to express the inner spirit, the essential nature of the subject itself. This required a deep, meditative understanding of both art and philosophy, a fusion of hand and mind. The composition itself was a philosophical statement. Look at a classic Japanese ink wash painting. The vast areas of untouched paper known as ma are not unfinished. This empty space is as vital as the ink itself. It represents the unseen forces of the universe, the silence between notes, the void from which all things emerge and to which they all return. It forces the viewer to slow down, to contemplate what is not shown, and to reflect on the transient, fleeting nature of a misty mountain or a solitary bird in flight. This emptiness is not a lack but a presence, an active participant in the artwork's meaning. Often, the visual poetry was accompanied by literal poetry. An artist would inscribe a classical poem in elegant calligraphy directly onto the scroll and add a carved seal, a unique stamp bearing their name or studio. This transformed the work into a collaborative conversation across time, a layered expression where the image, the poem, and the seal created a unified emotional and intellectual experience. A painting of a lonely boat on a wide river might be paired with a verse about exile, the words and the image amplifying each other to evoke a profound sense of melancholy and distance. Yet, this beautiful symbolism could also serve as a shield for dissent. During periods of strict censorship, an artist could not openly criticize a corrupt official or an oppressive regime. Instead, they painted allegorical landscapes. A painting of a mighty, gnarled tree being strangled by a creeping vine might be a silent protest against a powerful minister exploiting the people. A scene of a tranquil, orderly village hidden deep within misty mountains could be a veiled critique of the chaotic and unjust court. The ruling authorities would see only a masterpiece of landscape painting, while those who understood the code would recognize a daring political statement, a dangerous truth whispered through the beauty of nature. These Eastern traditions reveal that the artisan's code is a universal human impulse, a way to embed the deepest spiritual and ethical lessons into a visual form. This sophisticated interplay of meaning and material extended even further into the very substances artisans used to bring their visions to life. The shimmer of gold leaf in a medieval altarpiece does more than catch the light. It captures a theology. For the artisans who applied it, this was not a mere decorative luxury. It was the physical manifestation of divine light illuminating the sacred scene from within. The material itself was the message, a bridge between the earthly and the celestial realms. This deep, intrinsic meaning woven into the very substances of art forms our next layer of the artisan's code. The choice of a specific pigment could be a dense knot of alchemical symbolism, trade politics, and spiritual intent. Consider that radiant ultramarine blue derived from lapis lazuli. Its journey from distant Afghan mines to a European artist's workshop was a tale of immense cost and global trade routes. Using it was a bold statement about the patron's wealth, certainly, but for the artisan, it was also about embedding the most precious substance available into the robes of the Virgin Mary, linking her directly to the heavens through the quality of the earth itself. Conversely, the decision to use a local, earth-tone pigment could be a quiet declaration of cultural pride or a practical response to economic isolation, rooting the artwork in its specific landscape. The application technique was equally loaded with meaning. Leonardo da Vinci's sfumato, that smoky, soft blending of edges, was not merely a stylistic preference. It was a philosophical tool. By blurring the lines between forms, he evoked the intangible, the mysterious, and the fleeting nature of human perception. That hazy ambiguity around the Mona Lisa's smile is a direct result of this technique, making her expression as elusive as a passing thought. Centuries later, artists like Vincent van Gogh would use the opposite approach, impasto, laying paint on so thickly it created a textured, turbulent landscape. These were not just images, they were topographical maps of emotion, where the physical ridges of paint conveyed anguish, movement, and a raw, passionate engagement with the world. In some of the most powerful works, the material and the sacred became one. Medieval reliquary altarpieces were constructed to house physical relics, a saint's finger bone or a fragment of the true cross, embedded within an opulent casing of gold and gems. The artwork was not just a representation, it was a vessel, and its primary purpose was to magnify the power of the holy object it contained. The artisan's skill was in creating a worthy throne for this tangible piece of divinity, making the invisible grace of the saint visibly present through their craft. When we analyze these material choices, we move beyond iconography and into the workshop. We see the artisan as a chemist, an economist, and a theologian all at once. Their selection of a canvas, a stone, or a mix of mortar was a decision infused with both practical constraints and profound symbolic weight. This technical perspective, understanding the how and the what, completes our picture of the why. It reveals a creator deeply aware that their message was carried not only in the image they painted, but in the very substance they used to paint it. And often, the most urgent messages they needed to encode were not about trade or technique, but about the divine itself. A fish drawn in the dust was more than a sketch, it was a lifeline. In the catacombs of ancient Rome, this simple symbol, the ichthys, served as a covert sign of fellowship among persecuted Christians, a silent declaration of faith that a Roman soldier would overlook. This is the profound power of art in the service of the spirit, where every color, line, and shape was meticulously chosen to bridge the gap between the human and the divine. For centuries, artisans were not just decorators, they were translators of the sacred, encoding complex theological ideas into a visual language that could inspire an entire congregation, most of whom could not read a single word. Their work was a universal visual liturgy, a direct line to the soul. In the soaring spaces of Gothic cathedrals, this coding reached its zenith. The architecture itself was a prayer in stone, with pointed arches drawing the eye heavenward and vast stained glass windows transforming sunlight into a cascade of jeweled theology. Each color told a part of the story: ruby red for the passion of martyrs, emerald green for the renewal of faith. A pilgrim walking into Chartres Cathedral did not need a Bible. The entire story of salvation was mapped out above them in a symphony of light and glass, an immersive experience designed to evoke awe and reinforce belief. This was art as a direct channel for grace, an emotional and spiritual encounter built by master craftsmen who knew their work was for an audience of one. That same devotional intensity shaped the creation of Eastern Orthodox icons. Here, the artist was not a free creator but a devout servant following a strict, centuries-old canon. This was not a limitation on creativity but a safeguard against idolatry. The goal was not to depict a man who became God, but to capture the visual essence of God who became man. The serene, elongated faces, the reverse perspective that seems to bring the sacred figure out into our space, the specific placement of the hands, all of it was a theological language. The icon was considered a window into heaven, a point of contact with the divine prototype. To paint an icon was a form of prayer, and to venerate one was to honor the holy person represented, not the wood and paint itself. This meticulous coding ensured that the mystery of the faith was communicated with purity and precision, generation after generation. A parallel yet distinct spiritual language flourished in the Islamic world. Adhering to the prohibition of figurative representation in sacred contexts, artisans developed an astonishingly complex vocabulary of geometry and calligraphy. The dizzying patterns covering the walls of mosques are not mere decoration. They are profound visual sermons, the infinite repetition of star and floral motifs, interlacing with no beginning and no end, is a direct reflection of the infinite, indivisible nature of God. There is no empty space because divine presence fills all things. Woven into these patterns, the elegant script of Arabic calligraphy transcribes verses from the Quran, transforming the very word of God into a breathtaking visual form. To stand inside the Blue Mosque in Istanbul is to be surrounded by a cosmos of mathematical harmony, a silent, overwhelming argument for the unity and order of the divine creation. This artistic tradition proves that the absence of the human figure does not mean an absence of profound spiritual expression, but rather its channeling into an abstract, universal language of truth. On the Indian subcontinent, Hindu temple sculptors achieved a similar feat through abundance. The outer walls of a temple like Khajuraho are encrusted with thousands of figures, a vibrant encyclopedia of cosmic principles. Every god and goddess, every celestial being and mythical beast is depicted with specific attributes, hand gestures known as mudras, and vehicles like Shiva's bull or Vishnu's eagle. These are not random decorations. They are a complete symbolic code for complex philosophical teachings about duty, desire, and liberation. The famous erotic sculptures, when understood in their full context, are not merely sensual. They represent the cosmic union of male and female energies, the merging of the individual soul with the universal divine. The entire temple, from its grand tower representing the mythical mountain at the center of the universe to its intricate bas-reliefs, is a map of the cosmos and a guide for the spiritual journey. It is a theology carved in stone, designed to be read and understood by every devotee who walked its circumambulatory path. In every one of these traditions, the artisan's code was used to make the invisible visible, to give form to faith itself. But this sacred vocabulary was rarely used in a vacuum. These powerful spiritual symbols were incredibly tempting tools for those who wielded earthly power, eager to harness divine authority for their own political ends. A fallen emperor's statue, its face carefully recarved into the likeness of his successor, is more than a simple update. It is a silent, brutal act of political erasure, a permanent rewrite of history in stone. This is the power of art in the hands of the state, a tool to shape reality itself. For millennia, rulers have understood that controlling the image means controlling the narrative. Roman emperors, masters of this visual propaganda, flooded the empire with coins and sculptures bearing their idealized portraits. They were never shown as ordinary men, but as godlike figures with perfect, ageless features and bodies brimming with martial strength. An emperor depicted with a globe under his foot was not just a man, he was the ruler of the world. A statue showing him in the pose of Jupiter, clutching a thunderbolt, was a direct claim to divine authority, a message of power meant to be understood by every citizen, from the senator to the illiterate farmer. This was the official code, broadcast loudly and clearly, but the same artistic language could be twisted into a whisper of dissent. During the French Revolution, artists weaponized classical motifs. They painted their new republican heroes in the simple, sturdy togas of Roman senators, framing their struggle not as a bloody revolt, but as a noble return to the ancient virtues of liberty and civic duty. Simultaneously, they depicted the overthrown monarchy through the lens of decadent, corrupt Roman emperors, vilifying them with the very same classical imagery that had once been used to glorify kings. This was a brilliant rhetorical move, using the established visual language of power to dismantle that very power. More subtle still were the codes hidden within seemingly innocent scenes. A court painter forced to create a flattering portrait of a despised king might include a small, telling detail, a storm cloud gathering on the horizon just behind the ruler's head. A wilting flower in an otherwise vibrant bouquet, a broken column in the background, a well-known symbol of mortality and fallen glory. To the king and his court, these were mere decorative elements. But to those in the know, those who shared the artist's quiet contempt, these were deliberate signals, a shared secret mocking the figure on the throne. The artwork became a two-faced document, its public meaning celebrating authority, while its hidden meaning nurtured the seeds of resistance. Deciphering these political codes requires us to become detectives of history. We must ask not just what we are seeing, but what was happening when the brush touched the canvas, who held the purse strings, what was the popular sentiment. What events were too dangerous to name aloud? The same painting that hangs in a museum as a beautiful masterpiece was once a volatile political statement, its true charge neutralized by time. This reveals that art was never a separate realm of pure beauty. It was and is a battlefield of ideas where the fight for the public's mind was waged in pigment and marble. This deep interplay between external power and internal expression leads us to wonder about the mind behind the brush. What personal drives, what hidden corners of the human psyche compelled an artisan to leave such complex and often dangerous messages for us to find? Our brains are hardwired for this very search. That moment you spot a hidden fish in a catacomb sketch or recognize a wilting flower as a symbol of mortality is not just an observation, it is a neurological event. Your mind's pattern-seeking machinery, a relic from our ancestors scanning the savannah for predators, whirs to life and delivers a potent shot of intellectual satisfaction. This is the deep psychological pull of the artisan's code. We are not merely looking at art, we are solving it. Every time you successfully decode a symbol, your brain rewards itself, releasing chemicals that create a sense of accomplishment and pleasure. This transforms the silent, distant artwork into a collaborative puzzle, a shared secret between you and the creator. You are no longer a passive observer, you are an active participant in a conversation that spans centuries. This personal engagement is what forges an unbreakable bond with the work. When you uncover a hidden critique of a patron or a sculptor's silent plea, you are not just learning a historical fact. You are connecting with a human moment of pride, fear, or defiance. You might look at a Renaissance portrait and, based on a subtly placed hourglass, interpret it as the artist's warning about the patron's vanity. Someone else might see the same object and feel a personal reminder of their own time slipping away. This projection of our own interpretations is not a flaw in the process, it is the very heart of it. The code invites us in, allowing ancient masterpieces to speak directly to our modern concerns and emotions. Cognitive science confirms this powerful effect. Studies show that when we actively engage with a puzzle, whether it is a riddle or a hidden symbol in a painting, our brains form stronger, more durable memories of the experience. We do not just remember the painting, we remember the thrill of the discovery itself. This mental reward system explains why mysteries hold such an enduring fascination and why we feel a personal stake in cracking the Artisan's cipher. It is a meeting of minds across time, fueled by our most fundamental human drives to find patterns, to seek meaning, and to feel the quiet triumph of solving a puzzle meant just for us. This individual psychological journey, however, is only one side of the coin. The very codes we find so compelling did not emerge in a vacuum. They were carefully passed down through generations of artists, a secret cultural inheritance that shaped entire artistic traditions. That hidden fish drawn in the dust relied on a shared cultural understanding, a secret handshake passed from one believer to another. This knowledge was not written in a public manual. It was a living tradition, whispered from master to apprentice across generations. The most potent elements of the Artisan's code were often safeguarded within the walls of workshops and guild halls, treated as precious family secrets. A Renaissance painter would not merely teach his student how to mix pigments. He would initiate him into the symbolic language of flowers, the hidden geometry of composition, and the subtle ways to please a patron while preserving a sliver of artistic truth. This was an oral and practical education, a chain of cultural transmission that ensured the code evolved and remained vibrant. An apprentice learned that a lily meant purity not by reading a book, but by watching his master place it in the hand of the Virgin Mary, and by hearing the stories that gave the symbol its power. These oral narratives were the essential keys. An intricate altarpiece of St. Francis might be accompanied by a friar telling the tale of the saint receiving the stigmata, which would then explain the specific placement of a mystical light or the posture of a grieving angel within the painting. Without that story, the symbols remain beautiful but silent, their deepest resonance lost. This is the fragility of intangible heritage. When a guild dissolved, when a master died without a successor, or when a community was displaced, the key to their artistic language could vanish forever. We are left with the magnificent artifact, but the manual for its decryption has turned to dust. This loss underscores the urgency facing art historians and anthropologists today, a race to recover these lost contexts before they fade from living memory. The quest to reclaim this understanding now drives us to employ the most advanced tools of the modern world, from multispectral imaging to artificial intelligence, in an effort to hear those whispers once more. A scanner glides silently over the surface of a 400-year-old canvas, its invisible light revealing a ghostly hand reaching out from beneath the finished paint. This is not magic, it is science, and it is revolutionizing our conversation with the past. Modern technology has become the ultimate decoder ring for the artisan's hidden language. Techniques like multispectral imaging and X-ray fluorescence act as a kind of technological X-ray vision, allowing conservators to peer through layers of pigment and varnish to see the artist's very first thoughts. With infrared reflectography, we can now study the underdrawing, the preliminary sketch that guided the master's hand. These hidden lines often show drastic changes, a figure moved, a background element erased, a symbolic object added at the last moment. Each of these alterations is a clue, a frozen moment of decision that speaks volumes about evolving motives or the sudden, unspoken pressure from a powerful patron. We are no longer just interpreting the final story, we are witnessing the creative argument that shaped it. Digital restoration tools peel back the veil of time itself. They can simulate the original vibrancy of colors that have faded over centuries, allowing a symbolic flower that now appears a dull gray to bloom once more in its intended brilliant red, restoring its critical role in the visual narrative. Furthermore, the decoding process is no longer confined to a single scholar in a dusty archive. Vast digital databases now connect researchers across the globe, enabling them to cross-reference a peculiar symbol found in a Florentine painting with a similar motif discovered in a Flemish tapestry. This collaborative, worldwide network accelerates the deciphering of complex codes, turning individual puzzles into a collective, solvable mystery. These technological leaps do more than just confirm old theories. They constantly open new and unexpected avenues for discovery, making the invisible deliberately visible again. Yet, this newfound power to see through a masterpiece immediately raises profound ethical questions about our right to look. That same scanner revealing a hidden hand also raises a profound ethical dilemma. What right do we have to uncover secrets an artist may have deliberately buried? As our power to decode grows, so does our responsibility to wield it with care. The first ethical challenge is the act of interpretation itself. It is dangerously easy to cross the line from informed analysis into pure speculation, creating sensationalist theories that overshadow the artwork's true historical context. A random smudge of paint might be hailed as a revolutionary symbol, or a simple compositional choice twisted into a complex conspiracy. This overinterpretation does more than spread misinformation. It disrespects the artisan's original skill and intent, reducing their nuanced work to a simplistic puzzle. Even more critical is the risk of cultural appropriation. Decoding sacred symbols from a living tradition without the permission and guidance of its people is not scholarship, it is a form of trespass. Taking a Native American totem or an Aboriginal Dreamtime symbol and imposing an outsider's meaning onto it strips the symbol of its spiritual power and communal history. It transforms a vital element of cultural identity into a mere decorative motif for academic debate, causing deep offense to the descendant communities who are the rightful guardians of their own heritage. The very tools we use to uncover these secrets carry their own risks. While non-invasive methods like multispectral imaging are ideal, sometimes the lure of a definitive answer tempts researchers to take physical samples, a microdestruction that permanently alters the artwork. Is revealing a hidden message worth the cost of a microscopic piece of the original canvas or pigment? This is a constant balancing act between the desire for knowledge and the duty of preservation. The only way to navigate this complex terrain is with profound humility. It requires collaboration, not conquest. Art historians must work alongside cultural elders, religious leaders, and community representatives, ensuring that the decoding process is a dialogue rather than an extraction. We must constantly ask ourselves whether a secret was meant to be found by everyone, or if it was intended only for a select few. Some truths embedded in sacred art were designed to be understood only after years of spiritual initiation. Forcing them into the public eye can violate the very essence of the work. Ethical decipherment means respecting that some doors were meant to remain closed, and that our pursuit of knowledge must always be guided by a reverence for the artwork's integrity and its living legacy. This thoughtful approach does not hinder discovery. It ensures that our conversations with the past are built on a foundation of respect, shaping a more conscientious future for the entire field. The final ethical frontier in this quest is also its most exciting new beginning. We are entering a golden age of decipherment, one defined not by solitary scholars but by vast interdisciplinary alliances. Art historians now routinely partner with materials scientists who can identify a pigment's precise geological source, and with data analysts who can process thousands of images to find a recurring, previously overlooked symbol. This collaborative spirit extends to the public through crowd-sourced projects, where enthusiasts worldwide can help transcribe ancient artists' notebooks or flag subtle patterns in digital scans of frescoes, turning global curiosity into a powerful research engine. The technological horizon stretches even further. Quantum imaging techniques, still in their infancy, could one day map the molecular composition of a painting's underlayers without ever touching its surface. Machine learning algorithms are being trained to recognize the unique brushwork of a master versus their apprentices, and to predict symbolic correlations across entire cultural databases, suggesting connections no human mind could possibly retain. This data-driven approach is steering the field toward a vital correction, focusing new energy on the hidden narratives of underrepresented cultures and marginalized artisans. The geometric codes in Andean textiles or the spiritual symbols in indigenous Australian bark paintings are finally receiving the scholarly attention they deserve, radically expanding and diversifying our understanding of humanity's artistic impulse. Soon, the very way we experience these decoded masterpieces will transform. Imagine standing in your living room wearing a lightweight headset and watching the layers of the Sistine Chapel ceiling peel back before your eyes. Virtual and augmented reality will allow us to step inside a scanned tomb, watch a reconstruction of the artist's initial sketches materialize in the air, and interactively explore the hidden layers of meaning that have been physically inaccessible for centuries. This forward momentum guarantees that the artisan's code will remain a thrilling, dynamic dialogue between past and future. With these powerful new lenses, we are compelled to ask a profound question. How does knowing the secret story behind a brushstroke fundamentally change our appreciation of the art itself? Decoding a masterpiece's hidden language fundamentally rewires our relationship with it. We move from being distant admirers of a beautiful object to becoming active participants in a historical investigation. This shift is profound. When you understand that a certain flower in a Dutch still life is a rare tulip, a symbol of the era's dangerous financial speculation, the entire painting transforms. It is no longer just a study of light and texture. It becomes a commentary on economic folly and human greed. You are not merely looking at a vase of flowers, you are reading a newspaper editorial from the 17th century. This intellectual engagement forges a much deeper, more personal bond with the work. The artwork sheds its static, untouchable quality and becomes a living document, pulsating with the fears, hopes, and quiet rebellions of its creator. This enriched perspective has tangible consequences for our cultural world. When people begin to see museums not as mausoleums for pretty things, but as libraries of encrypted human stories, their support for these institutions grows. There is a renewed understanding that art conservation is not about preserving a faded surface. It is about safeguarding a complex code for future generations to crack. Museum education programs that teach visitors how to read these symbols become vital, transforming a casual visit into a thrilling treasure hunt. This knowledge also reverberates in the studios of contemporary artists. A modern painter, aware of this long tradition, might embed subtle critiques of consumer culture into a vibrant pop art piece, or use specific materials to comment on environmental crisis. The artisan's code did not die with the old masters, it simply evolved, finding new languages for new times. Ultimately, by learning to decipher these whispers from the past, we do more than solve a historical puzzle. We honor the courage and ingenuity of the artisans who dared to speak in code. We enrich our own cultural literacy, learning to look beyond the surface in a world saturated with images. And we are left with a powerful, lingering question. What hidden messages are we, as a society, embedding in the art of our own time? and what will future generations decipher about our own struggles and secrets? Every great masterpiece is a testament to human resilience. The artisans who embedded secret codes into their work faced immense constraints, yet they transformed those limitations into a powerful engine for creativity. They could not speak openly, so they learned to whisper through symbolism. They could not challenge authority directly, so they mastered the art of visual allegory. This historical struggle reveals a profound truth that barriers do not have to stifle expression. They can refine it into something more subtle, more layered, and ultimately more enduring. The very act of encoding a message is an act of hope, a belief that someone, someday, will be curious enough to look closer and understand. This universal human drive to communicate truth, even under pressure, connects us directly with those anonymous hands from centuries past. Their legacy is a masterclass in finding your voice, no matter the walls that seem to contain it. Uncovering these narratives is never a solitary pursuit. It requires the chemist analyzing a pigment, the historian cross-referencing a patron's biography, and the public sharing observations in a digital forum. This collaborative decoding process proves that shared knowledge is our most powerful tool for uncovering truth. It reminds us that understanding is built not by lone geniuses, but by communities pooling their curiosity. This practice of looking beyond the surface cultivates two essential skills for our own time: critical thinking and empathy. We learn to question the obvious narrative, to ask what story is being told, and just as importantly, what story is being concealed. We develop empathy for the creator's circumstances, imagining the pressures they faced and the quiet convictions they held. This mindset extends far beyond museum walls. We can apply the same discerning eye to the modern media that surrounds us. Every advertisement, political poster, and social media feed is a form of modern code, crafted with specific intentions and target audiences. By channeling the spirit of an art detective, we can ask who commissioned this message, what symbols are they using to persuade, and what underlying motives might be hidden in plain sight. This does not make us cynical, it makes us conscious and engaged participants in our visual world. You can begin this practice of deciphering today. The next time you stand before a painting, do not just see a picture. Ask simple, powerful questions. Why is that color so dominant? What does that recurring animal symbolize? Why is one figure in shadow while another is bathed in light? Your journey into the artisan's code starts with a single, curious glance. Your next museum visit can become a thrilling detective mission with just a few practical steps. Begin your investigation before you even arrive by researching the artwork's historical and cultural context. Understanding the political climate, religious beliefs, and social norms of the era is like finding the legend for a secret map. It reveals why an artist might have needed to speak in code in the first place. As you stand before a painting, look for recurring symbols, but pay even closer attention to anomalies. Is there a single, wilting flower in an otherwise vibrant bouquet? Is one figure dressed in an unexpected color or making a strange hand gesture? These oddities are often the whispers the artist left for you to hear. Take full advantage of the resources museums offer. Guided tours and audio guides that focus on symbolic interpretation are invaluable, as they point out details you might otherwise miss. Do not hesitate to use mobile apps that provide augmented reality overlays. These digital tools can visually peel back the layers, showing you the artist's initial sketches or highlighting hidden elements that have faded over time, bringing the code to life right before your eyes. Practice is your most important tool. Train your eye to observe the smallest details, the specific curl of a leaf, the direction of a gaze, the unsettling tilt of a compositional balance. Then compare the piece to other works from the same period or by the same artist. Does a usually serene symbol appear agitated here? Does a common scene lack a key figure? Identifying these patterns and deviations is the core work of decoding. To build this skill over time, engage with academic articles or documentaries on art history. They will introduce you to the wider symbolic language, teaching you to recognize a pelican as a symbol of sacrifice or a broken column as a reminder of mortality. The true joy of this pursuit is that there is rarely one single right answer. The goal is not to pass a test, but to enjoy the process of discovery and forge your own personal connection with the work. Your interpretation, guided by research and keen observation, is a valid part of the artwork's ongoing story. These coded masterpieces are an enduring legacy, a testament to the timeless human need to express truth, to challenge power, and to reach out across the centuries to a kindred spirit who is willing to look closely enough to listen. That quiet dialogue between creator and viewer never truly ends. An ancient artwork with a hidden message is not a closed book but an open invitation, a conversation that continues to evolve with every generation that encounters it. We are not just discovering their secrets, we are adding our own interpretations, finding new relevance in their age-old symbols. A political allegory painted during a Renaissance power struggle might resonate deeply with a modern audience navigating its own forms of censorship and dissent. The shared human experiences of love, power, faith, and rebellion encoded in these works transcend their original time and culture, creating a bridge of understanding that spans centuries. Their enduring appeal lies precisely in their mystery, in the tantalizing fact that they never fully surrender all their secrets. This ensures they remain eternally fascinating, always offering another layer for a fresh set of eyes to uncover. The act of preserving and decoding these masterpieces is about far more than safeguarding cultural heritage. It is about fueling future creativity. When a contemporary artist studies the geometric ciphers in a medieval cathedral or the subtle critiques in a royal portrait, they are inheriting a rich vocabulary of silent communication. This legacy shows that art was always meant to be more than a passive object of beauty. It is an active, living puzzle that challenges us to become more attentive viewers and thinkers in our own visually saturated world. The Artisan's Code, in all its forms, stands as a powerful testament to the unquenchable depth of human expression. A masterpiece is never just a finished object, but a living conversation that spans centuries. From Da Vinci's scientific ciphers to the sacred geometry of Egyptian tombs, we have walked alongside these artisans, learning to read their hidden language of symbols, color, and composition. Each decoded message, whether a quiet protest or a profound spiritual truth, forges a direct link to the mind and heart of its creator. This journey transforms our appreciation from simple admiration into a deep, personal connection with the human struggles and triumphs embedded in the work. The story of art is not locked away in history books. It is waiting patiently in the galleries and digital archives you can explore today. Your own curiosity is the most powerful tool you possess, the key that can unlock these narratives. The next time you stand before a painting, I encourage you to look closer. Ask yourself what story the colors are telling, or why a certain object seems out of place. Then share what you discover. Your interpretation adds a new voice to an ancient dialogue. If unraveling these historical mysteries has sparked your imagination, subscribe for more journeys into the past. Thank you for joining this great deciphering adventure. May your future encounters with art be filled with endless wonder and insight.